Hello all, welcome to the YouTube channel. My name is Lucas, aka Lucas R15 Sky, and we are here to review the second Test match between Bangladesh and New Zealand. And as always, when we review New Zealand cricket, our good friend Michael will be here doing these Test matches in series. Michael, good to have you back for the second Test. How did you find it?
Oh, look, it was such a contrast because it was absorbing cricket, but it was very one-sided in terms of it was very much the ball dominating the bat, and there was variable bounce, and when you get variable bounce, it's hard to play quick bowlers, it's hard to play spinners, it's hard to play anyone who puts the ball on roughly the right sort of spot because you don't know what it's going to do, and it means that players can play a perfect defensive shot and still get out. And that, for me, that meant that there was a tactical switch. You saw New Zealand made the decision after about 3 wickets down in the first innings. It's like, well, one of these balls is going to have my name on it, so let's try and score runs as quickly as we can. And Bangladesh batted away at 2 runs and over and got bowled out for next to nothing. New Zealand scored at 6 and over and scored roughly the same amount, and what you saw was just there was a decision going, well, one of these balls is going to have my name on it, so I'll score as many as I can until that happens. And it made for a really entertaining test. There was there was only about 180 overs, 2 days worth of play in the whole test. Yet we had 36 wickets. We had obstructed the field. I mean, how awesome is that? We had quick bowlers taking wickets. We had spinners taking wickets. We also had an outstanding 87 from Glenn Maxwell. Got out for the Devils number. And Glenn Phillips. We saw just some really, really good cricket played on what was an appalling pitch. I mean, I was full of praise in the last stream about how good the Sylhet pitch was, and it was wonderful. It got turned from day one. Sure, there was more in for the spinners and the seamers, because that's what you get in Bangladesh. But it was a perfectly balanced pitch. There was something for the batsmen, there was something for the fast bowlers, there was something for the spinners. Everyone had a go on that pitch in Sylhet, and there was never anything for the batsmen in this one. This was a absolute steaming pile of poo. And if it doesn't get a bad rating, then whoever's doing the ratings at ICC needs a new job, because this was an awful pitch. But ironically, the fact that it was a bad pitch actually meant that it was a really interesting game, because you just didn't know what happened. Every session, there were like 3 or 4 wickets falling. You know what we had effectively 7 sessions in the game. 35 wickets or 36 wickets fell. So, you're talking more than 5 wickets per session. It's awesome in some ways. It's a wicket every 6 overs. There's action. There's lots of runs happening. There's all that stuff happening. But at the same time, you're missing some of there's supposed to be a risk and reward in cricket, where if you don't play the risky shots, you're less likely to get out. Whereas if you want to score runs, you've got to take the risk. Whereas in this cricket, it was just a case of you will get out sooner or later, so you may as well score the runs while you're there. And there's a technical element that's missing in that for me.
A couple of points that you made. Well, firstly, I agree with you. I thought Bangladesh, if you were counting the amount of sessions each team won, you'd probably think Bangladesh won most of them. But it's what you said, how New Zealand quickly scored their runs by taking the game on. I think that made the huge difference, because I just thought, apart from today in the early 2 sessions where New Zealand got on top, I thought it was mainly Bangladesh's Test match. It was credit to the pitch, not credit to pitch, credit to your point about the pitch. I didn't really like it. I thought it was too much for day one. And then it just got worse and worse as the pitch went on. We lost a day to rain, a whole day to rain. and then the nonsense with bad light. I want to make a point on that, and I'll get your thoughts on that a little bit later. But I generally thought Bangladesh dominated this Test match. But once again, we made a point in this in the last Test match, Michael, that Bangladesh have a habit of making 1-0 leads and then not going on to win it. We saw that against Australia when they led 1-0 in Bangladesh. We saw that. We've seen that today against New Zealand, 1-0 up, and they haven't got the job done. I feel like it's the same situation with Bangladesh. Again, give all credit to New Zealand, especially Glenn Phillips and Satanen, how they batted tremendously through this Test match, and Glenn Phillips for the whole 2 Test matches. But once again, Bangladesh and their fielding, I don't know what's going on there. It's just a common problem that they have, not just in these Test series, but World Cups. The fielding is what lets them down. They dropped Glenn Phillips on 0 in this Test match. It's just one of these things, Michael, that lets them down badly from, making, a 1-1 draw, they'll take, but it could have been so much better, Michael. Yep. They could have won this game easily if they caught their catches. Now, they did catch some good catches. It was a tough pitch, to your credit, and they did take some good catches, but the catches is still the problem in Bangladesh and their fielding. Yeah,
look, I think I thought it was actually a vastly improved fielding effort. I think you're seeing progress being made. And, I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head the name of the player, but there's one guy that took about 4 catches or 5 catches, and he took the catch off Williamson.
Shanto.
Was it Shanto that took that one? I thought it was. I thought it wasn't, but that's right. He took the catch that he took off in the first innings off Williamson, a proper leg glance, coming down the wicket, playing a proper leg glance, and being caught by a guy at short forward leg. It's ridiculous. No one should have caught that ball. And you saw the word that escaped Williamson's mouth that when he saw it being caught. He was rather surprised because he thought he just hit a 4. You don't expect to be caught. It was outstanding. So there was a few of those moments, but you're right.
Hossain was the fielder that caught the catch, by the way. Hossain, I think.
Yeah. But the catch, the drop off of Phillips, you've got to be sharp. If you're defending 130 odd, you've got to be sharp in the field, and they were almost sharp. But there was about 4 times there were balls that fielded on the boundary that should have been fielded that weren't, or a 2 that turned into a 3, or things like that. And it's just, it's those micro skills that actually make a really big difference. And I mean, New Zealand, in a lot of ways, that's really, really where New Zealand thrives, is the 1%ers, is we make sure that we nail them. And in some ways, in the last year or two, has been a bit of the New Zealand's fielding has dropped away a bit. So it's it's good to see that Phillips is making a bit of a difference here. He's a great fielder, and I think he's probably secured his spot in the team for a while. I think he's averaging 16 with the ball and 40 with the bat now. Well, you're going to stay in the team for a while if you keep doing that.
Yeah. Just on Glenn Phillips, his tour of age, if you want to count the World Cup, has been completely outstanding. He was very good in the World Cup with the ball, and this series he's been very good with the bat, surprisingly, or unsurprisingly. What did you thought of his series or his tour of age in general?
Unsurprisingly for me, in that he's played on some fairly spin-friendly pitches in domestic cricket and averaged very highly. So when there's been a few New Zealand cricket have experimented with trying to get pitches that'll turn a bit more in the domestic game. And so he's played on some pitches where the spinners have picked up 18 wickets or that sort of thing. And he went in a 3-year period, he averaged something like 75 across those 3 years in first-class cricket. So he can bat. Like he's not just a T20 slogger. This guy can actually bat. Yeah. So I wasn't surprised that he did well. I was surprised that he did that well. But one of the things I have noticed in these tests is that the ball did seem to get easier to play after about the 25th over. And because he was batting at number 7, he was actually coming in after the shine had gone off the ball, so it wasn't as tough for him to bat on. I mean, I actually almost thought you should reverse the batting order for this chase, because really you want you guys that can bat to be coming in when the ball's doing a little bit less, when it's not so difficult to face. And it was almost unplayable in the first 15, 20 overs with that ball being new and skidding and popping. And, I mean, I remember Santner bowled a ball that went over the head of the batsman. Well, when Mitchell Santner's doing that, you got problems,
What contrast to Glenn Phillips? You mentioned the top order. I felt New Zealand's top order was very poor this Test series, especially Conway, Henry Nicholls, Tom Latham. What were your thoughts on those three players?
Okay, so on Henry Nicholls, I wouldn't have picked him for the first Test, but then what I saw in the first Test, I would have actually picked him for the second one. Now, that sounds a bit arsey-versy, but he's a guy who's got a really, really good average against pace bowling. So in the last 2 years, when he's been out of form, or he's been said to be out of form, he's still averaged 50 against pace, but he's averaged 16 against spin. So throwing against finger spin in particular, throwing him in to Bangladesh, who've got an army of very good finger spinners on pitches that suit finger spin, was really, like throwing a lamb to the lions. And yet in that first Test, he got 19 off 41 against the spinners without getting out in the first innings. Now, you'd say 19 off 41, that's nothing really, except 41 deliveries against those spinners to have not had, and he didn't even edge a ball. There was no drop catches or anything. It was 41 balls that almost all of them hit the middle of the bat. Now you look at that and you go, okay, so he's done some work on his weakness. He's turned it around. This is good. And then, but I think it's very hard to judge the ability of the top order on what happened in the first 15 overs in either innings in that match, because that pitch was just so terrible. And a new ball on that pitch, I think you've got to cut them a little bit of slack. But yeah, you look back on it and you think maybe Ravindra might have been a better option than Henry Nicholls. But I mean, I've seen Ravindra get out for low scores too on turning tracks. There's nothing that says that he would have been more successful. But I guess he couldn't have done much worse. Conway's a good player of spin. He moves back he moves sort of left to right quite well, which is what you need to do in Bangladesh. But he just got a couple of good deliveries, and that happens. Latham was, I think, disappointing. I was expecting more of him in the series. But again, there's a couple of that. I mean, he got a really good ball from Sharaful in the first innings, and openers do that. Openers get good balls early and get out to them. You don't want it to happen too often, but it is going to happen some of the time. So look, and that's part of the problem with the two-match series. We don't know if that's a pattern or just a good ball. It'd be wonderful if there was a third Test in the series. And I'm glad to see that New Zealand have got, I think, a 3 and a 4 Test series in the next cycle. So starting to crank up the number of Tests now that teams want to play New Zealand, and there's a commercial interest in playing them. Overseas teams are saying, well, actually, maybe we will play a 4 Test series. Maybe we'll play a 3 Test series.
I think Australia is one of them as well.
Yeah, Kane Williamson's never played a 4 Test series. I think he's only played 2, 3 Test series, or maybe even 1 in his career.
Wow.
So that's when you talk about that. The last time New Zealand played a 5 Test series, I think, was 1976 against the West Indies. So New Zealand don't play big series. That just doesn't. So that's quite exciting seeing that starting to happen again.
I think rightly so as well, because over the last 5-10 years, they've been a powerhouse in cricket. we all know New Zealand's run by rugby or rugby union particularly, with the All Black success in World Cups. But it is about time that New Zealand cricket got recognition, and giving them these big series, 4 series. I think that's a good thing for New Zealand cricket.
Well, I think, and hopefully it's not too late, because we're seeing the golden generation are all about to retire, and we may be about to get humbled at 4 tests in a row. There's certainly a risk of that. But there is some good young talent coming through. There's this kid, Willow Rourke, who's been picked for the return series when Bangladesh come to play in New Zealand. And he's one to watch out for. Big, tall seam bowler. I don't know how tall he is. Just from watching on the video, he's about a head taller than most of the guys he's playing against. So that says big. But you see almost every game he gets a batsman out to a top edge. He puts the ball on a good length. They try to play it, and it gets big on them. So that's exciting seeing him come through. There's this guy, Christian Clark. We've got some good quick bowlers and 3 particularly exciting spinners coming through, all under 25. So that's encouraging that maybe this isn't going to be the end of the line. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Finn Allen scoring a lot of runs in domestic cricket too. That's
a name I do recognisable, Finn Allen. No, I think it is a good sign that New Zealand are getting these best of 3, 4 Test series. Like I said, I think they're going to have one against Australia next year, I think, in New Zealand.
The 4 Test is going to be in Australia.
So he's right. Yes.
Moved around the Boxing Day Test. New Zealand will be having that as part of a 4 Test series. So, I mean, that's pretty cool, I've got to say, as a New Zealander,
Yeah,
although
that's fantastic.
During our summer.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fantastic, and kind of me hopes that you're right, that they might cop a bit of a pasting, but I like to see a close series, no matter who is against. Except England, I love beating them 5-0 for fun. No problem there. Sorry, James Butler, if you're watching. But yeah, I just love beating England in every format. I don't give a damn where it is. But no shade on you, Michael. I know you have a tough time beating England in big games. No shade. But just my rivalry with English cricket. I don't like them. Now back to the Test match. Last week we did your most disappointing. You said Ajaz Patel was your most disappointing in that Test match. This Test match, he was very good, Michael, in that second innings, taking 6 wickets.
Yeah, look, we know that he can bowl, and in the first innings, I thought he was quite disappointing as well. There was a pitch that was really helping him, and he didn't do a lot with it. Santner really was the one building the pressure. In the second innings, he came out, and it almost was like he'd been told, "Look, Santner's showing you up here. If you want to be the premier left-arm spinner, you'd better show what you've got." And he just put the ball on the spot, ball after ball after ball after ball. He got his length, he got his rhythm, and once he gets in that rhythm, I mean, you saw him destroy Pakistan a couple of times. You saw him deal to India. You saw him take Sri Lanka apart. I mean, when you're doing that, and now Bangladesh, when you're taking apart the Asian sides as a finger spinner, you've got the goods. Now he's not doing it as consistently as we'd like, but he just hasn't played enough tests in some ways. Very few spinners come out and are consistently awesome when they start Test cricket. You've got to build into a career to do that. But it was a vintage Ajaz Patel performance, and one that I was hoping to see. And I thought, I'd almost wondered if it was too late, if we'd missed him. But that was good to see that return.
On the other side, my most disappointing last Test match was Tom Blundell, and again, very disappointing this Test match and this whole series. Your thoughts on him?
Look, I thought he kept pretty well.
And
that's his main job. I don't think he should be at number 6. I think he should be at number 7. And I think if he had come in a little bit later, maybe he would have done a bit better. But I mean, Tom Blundell is very good against quick bowling. I don't think he's quite got his game sorted against spin yet. And that's part of that is just that he hasn't played a lot of games in those conditions. So, I think he's, it was disappointing. I would have liked to have seen more from him. But for me, I think actually the disappointing thing was that we didn't see the quick bowlers bowling enough. I think on those pitches, and in fact, I think I didn't pull the numbers at the end. I haven't looked at it, but the quick bowlers averaged something like 7 runs per wicket in that test. Whereas the spinners averaged about 15 or 16, something like that. Now, 15 or 16 is still incredibly low, but the quicks, I think, were underused. Both teams underused their quicks. I mean, Shoreful, again, he can bowl. He can bowl. Yeah. He should be. If I was in a Big Bash squad, I would be getting on the phone and trying to get him in my team right now. That kid can bowl, and he can bowl on pitches where there shouldn't be anything in it for the quicks. He looked awesome, and yet when he came to New Zealand, he looked just as good. He looks. I mean, tall, left arm, swings the ball, hits the deck hard, seams it. I mean, there he has got the whole package. And bowling 140, this guy's a good bowler. I thought he was outstanding.
Just on that, I don't think him and Cole Jamieson bowled a single over today. I might be wrong in that, but I don't remember them bowling a single over.
Yeah. Certainly Kyle Jamieson didn't. Shoreful did, I think, because he got a wicket, didn't he?
I think he did, yes. My mistake, he did, yes. I think so.
I think it's I thought he bowled. I thought I remember
certainly to your point,
but I may.
Yeah. No, I think you're right about Cole Jamieson. He didn't bowl a single over.
The fact that no, he didn't. But I wonder if there was an injury there or something, or if there was a niggle. Because if he did have something, a little niggle there, Shoreful bowled 5 overs, took 1 for 9. And that's he got Conway, and I mean, again, 1 for 9. He should have bowled more overs, especially when Santner and Phillips were looking comfortable. Why did they bring on Mominal? I mean, look, he picked up Phillips in the first test, but he's a part-timer. You've got a guy there who's troubling the top order batsman, and we know when he came in against the he picked up a couple of wickets. He picked up Phillips and Jamieson in the first innings. Why wouldn't you bring him back in? It just seemed nuts. And so I look at that and I think, Shanto did some good things, but both captains didn't play their quicks enough. They didn't give them enough chance to actually. He could have been the difference. He could have won the game for them.
Just on Tom Latham's captaincy. Tim Southee's captaincy. How did you find that this series?
I thought he did pretty well, actually. I mean, I didn't see. There was a couple of times I think he probably could have bowled himself more. He could have bowled Jamieson more. But look, I didn't feel like there were any things that I watched that I thought, oh, why is he doing that? The couple of times where I did, it worked. The couple of times I thought, oh, what's he thinking there? There was a wicket happen or something, and you go, oh, well, that's what he was thinking there. I thought it was, from what I saw, and I wasn't watching closely to the captaincy, so I can't say, sometimes when I'm watching a game, particularly if I'm writing about the match, I'll be making notes about things. I wasn't doing that in this match. I was watching it while my family were around and stuff, so I didn't have the level of concentration that I might normally have. But I didn't see anything there that made me think, oh, that was a bit odd. The thing is, I would have liked Phillips to have come in before Blundell, and that's probably a captaincy call, but it could be a coach call as well. that's about it, really. I think that, yeah, and again, I'd like to see the quicks bowling a bit more. But I felt like he left the field up well enough. He didn't go defensive, and he built pressure pretty well. I think there was a couple of times in the first innings when Ajaz was losing control, and he pulled him out at the right time to give him a breather, but then brought him back in fairly quickly, which is what you need to do. If you pull a spinner off because they've got hit, you don't let them sit and think about it for 30 overs. You get them back in there fairly quickly. And he did that. And I thought that was quite good. So,
apologies up front to Tom Blundell. Now, when I said most disappointing, that did not include his keeping. I thought his keeping in this Test series. I thought both keepers in this Test series were fantastic under extreme pressure. More so Blundell because he's not used to that compared to the Bangladesh keeper who is in these conditions. So I thought both wicket keepers were very well. So New Zealand win this second Test match. Tie the series 1-1, win by 4 wickets. There's something that really bothered me. I don't know if it bothered you, but the amount of times we came off a bad light. Now I get that in Asian conditions that the sun is not as strong as, say, a Perth where it's 40 degrees, or in Adelaide or in India. But I think coming off at around 4 o'clock local time, I think it's just ridiculous, in my opinion, just absolutely ridiculous. I think there's got to be more towards the batsmen, the batting team, to keep them on the field. What are your thoughts on that, Michael? Do you notice anything with that, or am I just being a little bit paranoid?
Look, I wonder if they're starting the game a bit late, because the sun sets at 5:15 this time of year. So if you've got a game that's supposed to be finishing at 5 o'clock, well, that's just not going to happen. It rises at 6 a.m. So why are we starting at 10 o'clock or 10:30? Why don't we look at starting it an hour earlier? But then I guess you'd want to have people being able to go to the game after work. So there's that balance there, I guess. But there's no point going to watch them not playing. So I think. And look, I've been to Dhaka. It's gloomy. Even on a bright sunny day, it's gloomy. So it's hard to explain that, but it's just that's my experience of it anyway. Whereas it's not, the sun isn't as bright, and I can imagine it being really hard to pick up the ball. And I don't know if you've played any sort of late season cricket where where you suddenly, it's all of a sudden you just can't see the ball, and you're playing, and it's like, I just couldn't actually see it. It's coming to you, just lose the ball, or it's coming to you, and it's terrifying. And you're fielding, and the ball's coming towards you, and you just can't see it. So you don't want to be someone bowling 140 Ks or 130 Ks is enough to cause some serious damage. I mean, I've seen someone having ribs broken by a guy bowling at less than 110. So 130 Ks is enough to if you don't know where it's coming from, it could kill you. So you've got to be careful with that. But I think, start the game earlier if it's going to be, if you know that the sun's setting at 5:15, why are you playing scheduled playtime till 5? It's just not going to happen.
Do we come to a point where, to stop bad light, we use a pink ball for the whole Test match? The whole day, use it, not necessarily have a day-night Test match, but you can still have your normal day Test matches, but we just use the pink ball instead.
Look, I think if the pink ball isn't quite there yet, but I think another couple of generations of development on the pink ball, and it may actually be time to say, hey, look, Test matches, pink ball, because once you get it to the point you can see it, you can see it better. If you get it to the point where it's going to behave a bit better, because at the moment it still does a bit much, it swings a bit too long, and then once it goes, it gets too easy to play. You've got that, like it's too pronounced, the difference between the phases. But when they get that a little bit better, that could very well be the solution.
Yep. From experience, I have played in a game, in an 80 overs match, a 2-day game over 2 weekends. where I have used the pink ball, and I must say during the daytime I actually prefer it to a red ball. I can see it much more easily. Just from a keeper's perspective, it does light up very easily during the day, and we all know what it does during the night. So that's probably a little bit of bias for me, but I just prefer the pink ball in general because it just eliminates all bad light, which I think is a huge problem in the subcontinent. We can't have sunlight like we do in Perth, like we do in Adelaide, like we do in Melbourne. But I just think it's just a little thing that can be improved in my mind. But, as you said, the pink ball is not there yet. It does have its problems. It is flawed.
A couple of generations of development will fix that.
Yeah, of course. So, I think when they used the white ball, the white ball wasn't perfect when it first came in. Until probably some will say the white ball's still not perfect. Though I don't agree with the 2 new white balls at each end. That's something for a different day. Unless you want to chip in about that, Michael.
I actually like the two new balls. I'm in a distinct minority there, though. I know that not everyone, and I like the fact that it actually does give what you see some captains starting to do now. Is they will have you into the deck bowlers all bowling from one end, and so they'll try and destroy that ball, and they'll try and keep the other one as hard as they can, so that then there's a difference between the two ends, and the batsmen it's like losing their eye because the ball's coming on differently between two different balls. I think that sort of thing is actually quite interesting. It gives an extra thing for the captains to have a try and do.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Michael does love the 2 new white balls. And that wraps up. Actually, before we wrap up the show, just speaking of the white ball series, New Zealand will play Bangladesh. It might be over for the test matches. They do play Bangladesh with white ball games, a couple of ODIs, a few T20s. Just your thoughts on that, Michael, on that series coming up.
Look, it's nice to have some cricket happening in New Zealand. They're not going to many of the big centres. So the games are in Dunedin and Nelson and Napier and Mount Maunganui. Now Tauranga and Dunedin are your sort of second-tier cities. As a former resident of Dunedin, it hurts me a little bit to say that. But there's nothing in Auckland or Wellington or Christchurch or Hamilton, which are your 4 biggest cities. So they're being saved for later in the year, perhaps, or later in the season. But Bangladesh beat New Zealand in Mount Maunganui, and so bring them back there. It's a good chance for revenge, but it's also it's a chance for them. Napier tends to be the track that turns the most in New Zealand, so putting them there, that's an interesting choice. Nelson also tends to take a bit of spin, but I expect New Zealand to win all six games. Where the matches are will bring them a little bit closer. And Bangladesh on their day can be a very, very good one-day side. I don't think their T20 side's very good, but their one-day side is. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes.
Do we play too much white ball cricket?
I don't think so, because the game's got to make money. Tests lose money, white balls make money. So it's like if we lose money on everything, then we don't have a game. You've got to make some money. I did like Martin Crowe had a concept of the 3-3-3 series, that he wanted to have every series, unless there was something special on it, being what he called a 3-3-3. 3 tests, 3 T20s. And I think that's actually quite a nice concept. And in fact, also having an overall cup with a points system. 1 point for a T20 match, 2 points for an ODI match, and 4 points for a test match. I think that would add a degree of interest to the white ball cricket as well.
I actually completely agree with Martin Crowe there and what you just said. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the show, Michael?
Oh, look, I guess the one thing I want to say is that it's really nice to see Glenn Phillips scoring runs in a test match, because I've been calling for him for a long time to be in the test match. And while he was picked as a bowler, it's still nice to see him there actually scoring runs as a batsman.
Well, there you go. Your wish is your command. And that wraps up the Test match series between Bangladesh and New Zealand. Michael, thank you for coming with these 2 tests. And we will see you again in New Zealand when New Zealand return home for their Test series again against Bangladesh, I presume. And then Australia, the big one. In Australia, sorry. But until then, Michael, we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us for these 2 tests.
Brilliant. We'll catch you around.
No problem. Please follow Michael on Twitter, Michael, me, Lucas R15 Sky, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.